Okay, so today we're diving into something that I think a lot of guys are thinking about these days and trying to figure out,
Yeah.
what does it mean to be a man? What's my true masculine side?
Mhm.
We hear that phrase a lot, what does
Yeah.
that even mean? And
And it can be a loaded phrase too.
yeah, absolutely. And so we've got some really interesting material here. And I
Yeah.
think our goal today is really to kind of unpack that a little bit. What does that actually mean for a guy like you listening? What are some of the things uh that you can think about that are beyond just, the stereotypical images of,
Yeah.
a big strong,
Yeah.
guy with a beard or something like that?
Yeah. It's not about the outward appearance,
Yeah.
the muscles or the sort of stereotypical image of what a man is supposed to look like. It's really about looking inward
Right.
and finding something deeper.
Yeah. So when we talk about that, like a true masculine side,
Yeah.
what should immediately come to mind for a guy? Forget the images for a second. What's at the core of that idea?
I think what's really fascinating about this whole concept is that it is so deeply personal. What
Yeah.
resonates as authentically masculine for one man
Yeah.
might feel totally different for another. And I think that's okay.
Right. Yeah.
It's really about peeling back those layers of expectations, societal expectations, or even personal expectations,
Yeah.
and getting down to that internal sense of self.
Yeah. And our sources, even if indirectly, kind of point towards some ways you might explore this. Like really looking inward introspection, right?
Yeah.
Becoming more aware of who you are at your core. How do these kind of internal processes, I guess, help in this journey?
Well, I think they're really the bedrock. Without that inner exploration, any attempt to connect with your, so-called true self can feel really forced or inauthentic.
Yeah.
So self-awareness, I think, is key here.
Okay.
Helps you identify your values, your core values, what truly guides you, regardless of what other people expect of you.
Yeah.
And so
Go ahead.
there are all sorts of ways, you can do that. I mean, even just simple things like journaling, writing down times when you felt genuinely yourself versus times when you felt like you were playing a role.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that makes sense.
That can be really illuminating.
So that brings us to authenticity then, right? Like
Yeah.
it's about being genuine, not just trying to fit into some off-the-rack definition of manhood.
Exactly. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
about living in alignment with those core values that you've identified.
Okay.
It's about expressing yourself honestly, even if it challenges, the traditional ideas of what it means to be a man.
Right.
Think about it. Like strength can be found in vulnerability,
Mm-hmm.
not just in, having a stiff upper lip.
Yeah, absolutely. So, the world throws a lot at us, right? We get all these messages
Yeah.
all the time.
Mhm.
How do those ingrained societal beliefs actually make it harder for a guy to connect with his authentic self?
Yeah, I think this raises a really crucial point about the messages we absorb from a young age. These ideas around suppressing emotions or always needing to be the provider or the protector.
Yeah.
You know,
Right.
these can create a lot of internal pressure and build walls.
Yeah.
So challenging those beliefs,
Yeah.
questioning where they came from, I think that's a really important step in self-discovery.
So it sounds like we're shifting the focus then from outward displays, like, the tough guy act, for example, to more internal qualities. What are some of those inner characteristics that might signal a connection with this, true masculine side?
Well, I think integrity is definitely a big one.
Okay.
Taking responsibility for your actions, being resilient,
Yeah.
you're able to bounce back from challenges. Those are all really important. But I think also empathy.
Mm-hmm.
The ability to understand and share the feelings of others, that's huge.
Mm.
And what's interesting is that, while these qualities aren't necessarily exclusive to men,
Right.
I think they're vital for a fully realized human experience.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. So as you've been following along with this deep dive, what's the main thing you should take away about this whole idea of a man getting in touch with his true masculine side?
Well, I think the biggest takeaway is that it's a very individual path. It's a process of self-discovery and embracing who you genuinely are.
Yeah,
There's no one-size-fits-all answer here.
absolutely. And here's something to really think about. Beyond all the external noise and all the expectations, what does being a man truly mean to you? What are those internal qualities that resonate most deeply with your own sense of self? I think that's worth exploring on your own. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive.
Thanks for having me.
Really appreciate it.
Yeah. Take care.
You too.
Yeah.
Bye.